Hello and welcome to this 75th Madaxeman.com podcast. This week we've got a slightly diminished team of 6 as Dave is out walking the streets, serving the man, taking heads, counting numbers, but we also do manage to fit in an epic edition of I'm Sorry I Think You're an Arse, which covers the vexed subject of Wargaming Shows. We dip into version 4 and some of the snippets for ADLG that have been released on the French forum. We have all the usual chit-chat about painting and gaming. We also have a report on what we played this week. Andy's quiz makes an appearance, and there's all the usual nonsense. But sit back, pin your ears back, and get ready for the 75th Madaxeman.com podcast, which is coming up now.
This means war.
I believe this might be episode 75. I think we had a double 73 last week in some strange way through the Mesoamericans and the legendary return to form from I'm Sorry I Think You're an Arse normal muttering episode and our ADLG banter as well. But that's obviously exhausted poor Mr. Saunders, as we're Saunders free, as he is now gainfully employed as part of the enormous task force of people saving the country by making sure that the census works. So he's probably knocking on strange people's doors, and I'm here looking in strange people's windows on screen, really. And I think he's probably got the more normal end of the bargain, I suspect, out of that. So we're Saunders less, which means we've got a team of 6 here. So without further ado, let's dive straight into the world of painting. And center and middle for me, Mr. Finkel. What painting has happened in that kitchen of yours? It looks like you've got some sort of plastic sheeting over your pots and pans on top of your cupboard. So have you been going for it in a big way, splashing the stuff around, doing it kind of Jackson Pollock style on your Seleucids or whatever they were?
Well, there's been a load of Pollocks here in the kitchen, I can tell you, but it's mainly
cooking a lot of fish. Yeah.
It's due to the fact it's our Passover, so our normal pots and pans, which we use the rest of the week, we have to cover them because we can't use them this week. I'm not going to explain it all to you. The rules of DBM are probably far more interesting,
but far more straightforward, yeah.
And straightforward, I should think, yeah. But in terms of painting,
are you doing Passover 3.0 or 2.1 possibly? Or does it not work like that? No,
we haven't been officially informed yet.
Okay then, right.
It's 5,200 and something or other probably. But there are what I have managed to do this week in between Passover and things like that is get painted all those museum figures which I was working on previously. So I've done a unit of hoplites or hoplites since David's not here to correct me. I've done a unit of Indian medium swordsmen. I've done 4 units of Greek cavalry figures, 4 units of Greek light cavalry with javelins, and 2 units of Scythian light cavalry with the noddy hats and bows. Okay. All done, painted, based.
Bish bosh. So what gave you the turbo boost to power through all of those then?
Well, I was kind of doing over a period of weeks and doing bits here and there of different colours. So I'm doing a colour, I'll do it on all the different bases, and I had lots of lollipop sticks which I was going over, and then I got to the stage where it just took a few more bits on each unit to finish it off, and before I knew where I was, I'd actually finished them. I did have 3 evenings where I could do bits of painting last week, which meant that I had a lot of able to make quite a bit of headway. And what I'm painting now is 24 figures of Saracen bowmen for my Normans and Sicily army.
Okay, so going back to those museum ones, because I had a long chat this week with a friend of mine who lives overseas about the museum figures on I think Messenger. I get lost with all the different platforms that you can talk to people on, but sort of where we went to was that he was saying he found it frustrating that museum put those amazing looking 3D renders, and then the figures that you get don't look anything like that. And I was kind of thinking, or my kind of argument was that possibly the figures do look exactly like the 3D renders, but because they're so teeny tiny in 15 mil, the detail that's on the 3D render that you see on screen is so shrunk down it almost disappears. And I think Museum had put some Dave from Museum had put something on his Facebook this week about redoing the Mycenaeans, and I chipped in and a couple of other people chipped in and said, could you just make the details a lot more exaggerated? But because the Persians that I've been doing, once they're inked, you can absolutely see all the super fine detail is there. But if you just go a little bit OTT with a heavy hand on the spray undercoat, half of it disappears, and it's kind of there, but it's not there, which is sort of weird. But where was your head at with them?
I didn't think they were quite as detailed as the samples shown on the website.
Yeah.
But I wasn't too bothered by that because, I mean, at 15 mil, you're going to lose some of that anyway. The one thing I did find a bit difficult was the mounted all-in-one figures. It's more difficult to get all the detail or paint all the bits that you'd paint if they were separate, which in some ways is good, but in some ways you feel you're missing out on certain things that would pick up different colors.
Yeah, one piece castings are
are
tricky, aren't they? In almost any well, I suppose in any sort of period, one piece castings are tricky. That's been
and any scale.
And any scale, yeah, I suppose so. Or do you get them in bigger than? Well, you know, I get them in 10s and 6s. Do you get them any bigger than 15s?
I think I have seen 20 and 28.
Wow. Okay. I guess is that where you start splitting the
28 is quite
waist?
rare. It's probably old one, so probably more 25 than 28.
Yeah, I suppose it must make casting easier, but it I don't know. Do you really lose that much?
No, it wouldn't make casting easier.
No? Okay.
I must admit, I'm quite happy with them in terms of price point, quality, and overall package. I'm very happy with them. So they're, they don't feel so scruffy that you don't want to get them out on the table. So
yeah.
And they should be hopefully turning up at a Wargames table in Bournemouth reasonably soon.
A competition fairly near you soon. Okay. Well, look, if we've invoked the gods of Bournemouth, that probably means it's time to move over to Adam and his world of gluing plastic people together. And I think that's Adam, you're on mute. I'll say that before you even start talking, possibly. But
yeah, I knew that.
Yeah, you knew that. I could see that. You just jumped at it. Your finger lurched towards the screen in a disturbing sort of way. But what's been happening in Bournemouth painting world this week?
Well, plastic people and horses are indeed stuck together and uncoated, as Julie said, in black. So they're ready to go. And what I tend to do is I get my second batch up to the point where they're undercoated, then finish the first batch. When that first batch is finished, I'll then undercoat another one. So I've started painting the ships. Only done the decks, but the ships don't take too long because they are actually quite small. So it just doesn't take too much time to put paint on them. It probably takes longer to rig them.
Are you doing their decks that colour that Dave was looking for? What was that? Deck ivory or something? Deck tan.
No, I tend to do a quite a light sand colour, not quite dunkel gelb, but partially dunkel, because most decks, Age of Ironclads, Age of Sail, would be wood holy stone, so they would be sort of like very well sandpapered wooden decks.
Wood holy stone, is that
a holy stone? Is just like a stone sandpapery type.
A bit like pumice stone, isn't it? Sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's called holy stone. It's just scraping off the deck all the time. That was like one of the make work jobs that sailors had. So I've done it in sort of like a dunkly gelb, but not too dunkel. Yellow.
I think pine colour.
Think of posh flooring.
Because I took the wrapping off our garden furniture today, which always gives you that challenge of, do I wash the decking this year? And this year the answer is no. Our decking's falling apart. We're barely going to get one more year out of it before it's going to have to all go. So
that's where you get to play with power wash tools.
I know it's tricky, but I actually got to play with proper power.
It's not tricky. No tricky at all.
I just did some hardball on it. But going back to toy soldiers,
will it fit in the vortex thing?
Yes, vortex mixer. Yes,
vortex 2 mil nozzle
from Bosch and Black and Decker. So going back to deck pumice then, because I don't particularly fancy doing my decking with pumice. But so you were doing a pale pine sand color to do the decks of your. So do you do decks first, or and then edges?
Yeah, it's sort of standard. I try to follow standard inside out. So the deck's the most inside thing of a ship. Then I'll do the things on the deck. Then I'll do the masts and bowsprit, and then I'll do the hull.
So do you find that because where you've got those joins of deck and vertical surface, I'm guessing, while Stab in the Dark here is grey, do you find that you end up like doing repeated iterations of touching those things up, or do you just do sod it, it's good enough, or are you just a perfect painter when you do ships?
The masts tend to be black. Ironclad masts tend to be painted black. They're not perfect by any means, because what you've actually got is you've got just where the mast goes into the ship, you've got a small little sort of slope of erudite, to be honest. And they're sand, and I'll paint to the bottom of them. And I can sort of like do that quite accurately, but it's like because I've got my model ships. I've got two different types really, or the model ships for the ironclads. I've got the Skytrex ones that OK models. They're wargaming models, and I do them as wargaming models. So I'm not too fussed that I've put erudite on to make the mast strong rather than making it flat and smooth. And the other ones I've got are from a German manufacturer called High. And they're precision engineered proper models, and they come painted, and they come 20 quid each, and they're just beautiful. I mean, you can get a magnifying glass and go, oh, that is really, really very good. And I've got quite a few of them. And using them as war games models isn't really a done thing. They're collectors, you know what I mean? It's like what serious weird Germans collect. But they look nice. So, but the ones that I'm doing now, Skytrex, Wargame standard, because to be frank, and they're good enough models, but they're not much more than War Games models anyhow. So
how many of these ships do you have, as a matter of interest?
About I've got about
have you got more than the actual ironclads existed in the first place?
I've got about 15 French, about another 12 Russians, and I've got 5 or 6 British that I'm painting up a few more. So about 30. So
you're nearly 1-to-1 then?
No, there's hundreds of buggers. Because remember, it's going from 18. I've got some sort of like 1850s screw line of battleships before the ironclads, and it goes. I've got ships from the 1850s all the way up to the early 1890s.
So which ones are easier to do? The ones that are just normal sailing ships, or the ironclads, or the ones past ironclads?
Oh, the past ironclad, the mastless ones. Once you get to the period where you're not doing masts, it kind of gets simpler.
Have you done some of the PT boats, the ones we were on about, the
Cruel Seas?
Cruel Seas ones as well?
No, it's I've got World War II. Oh no, the PT. No, I haven't done that. I've looked at it, but from everything that I've read, basically, the narrow seas type, shallow seas type game has been around for a long time. And when reading reviews of that, for people that know what they're talking about, they say, yeah, it's all right, but there are better sets of rules out there. So if I was going to do it, you don't have to get Warlord game models, because they're sort of like too big, really, to fit on the table properly and have a game. There are better rules. So if I was to do it, I probably wouldn't do Cruel Seas anyhow. But that's not something that has ever really attracted me. Naval gaming, like big ships.
You'll be steaming around slowly and lobbing shells at each other from great distances.
But if they're ironclad, are they steaming around or are they sailing? Do you get like an extra boost in the rules or something?
They're in battle. They're steaming. In battle, they're steaming. Sailing. Early ironclads were fully masted, so if they were travelling long distances, they would sail. But if they were going down, if they're going into battle, there was actually an order which was down screw, up funnel. So you would put your funnel up.
So does that mean you do like a strategic move of sailing, strategic move, before you then start steaming in?
That would be campaign. Because it takes a while to get the ship ready for battle. So no, it's like any game I've played.
Don't you have extra rules about running out of coal and things?
No, you can do if you want, but fuck that. It's
but
just like
that's too hard.
The main advantage of painting in that era is that every 12 o'clock, you get to give yourself a tot of rum.
Yeah, that doesn't really help my painting technique at the best of times, though.
Sounds good though.
Makes you more tolerant of mistakes, though, I imagine.
Yeah,
The
well,
ultimate thinners.
it's a funny thing. I'm more than willing to forgive myself for my own mistakes. Anybody else, not so much. But
No.
yeah, no.
And on that note, I think Peter, we should definitely come to
No,
you.
no.
Oh, no, there's more.
I've got more
There's
exciting
more.
rules.
Oh,
Wait, there's more.
He's
But
going.
yesterday, because I didn't think I was going to work this week, but yesterday I got a phone call early evening saying, do you fancy working half a day in this school, which was kind of close to employment? And it's like I wasn't doing anything and I didn't have to pick my children from school up until 3:15. So it's, yeah, I'll do that. So as I was going to be going not too far away from employment, I accidentally ordered 60 quid worth of figures and went and picked them up on the way home. So I'm now the proud owner of a box of the Perry Mercenary.
European Mercenaries, the world's best box set of figures.
Yeah.
Oh, they're fantastic. The plastic
amazing.
mercenary ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got two of those. They are crazy. You can do all sorts with it.
Yeah. And I got Foot Knights and I got English, or I got War of the Roses Longbowmen for me Ordnance Archers as well. So sort of like most of the money I earned working, I just went down and gave to employment.
That's good. Well, look, if you look at all those sprues and all those bodies and stuff, and if you need any spare arms or things with javelins and swords that are not in the box that you want to morph from Romans, give me a shout, because I've just got a little box full of small plastic arms from all periods of history. But
one slightly annoying thing about that is because there's this thing about the more sort of like, especially plastic figures you do, you get leftovers, so you get to swap and you get to do interesting things. And I'm starting to get loads now, and I keep looking at it going, just don't, no, can't be asked, or it doesn't work, because it's I've got Mongol cavalry, I've got legionnaires, and now I'm doing completely different. So maybe, although I did manage to put Dacian heads on those ghouls you gave me, so they do look convincingly Dacian. But yeah, I've got, because I've sort of like collecting all this spare stuff myself, and now I've just got loads and loads of plastic in a box that's probably going to sit there forever.
You spend more time working out which bit goes with what.
no, it's odd though, because I'm painting up these 15mm Zeist and Thracians at the moment, and I've got those Thracian conversions using the Dacian heads and the Greek bodies. So I've got the same figures sat next to each other in two different scales, which is like, this is very weird. And I'm trying to think, it's a lot easier to paint the designs on the cloaks on the big ones, isn't it? For some reason, I can't kind of quite get my head around that. But literally, yeah, I've got Thracians in 15.
You're old. It's your eyesight's going to.
Yeah, I think that's it.
This means war.
So, have you managed to glue any of your aged fingers together this week?
I glued many things, some of which actually involved models. It was I remembered why Iridite annoyed me, because it takes so bloody long to dry and fit and everything else. And fortunately, I posted on the WhatsApp, and then Adam said about the super glue. So a few I tried with the dotted super glue, then the Iridite, and they went okay. The others, my dog jumped up and wings went everywhere. Let's say. So
You had a huzzah
the
dog
long
incident.
weekend is redoing a whole bunch of things, including I suddenly need a couple of new not javelins. What do they call them? The
Lances, possibly.
Lancers. That's it. Lancers, not jousts. Lancers. Because they're very fragile. Those I'm finding.
Oh, wow.
So I might
You've
be
not
sort
bought
of
a
like,
brush head yet to snip them off.
what? Snip what off?
An actual broom brush head to snip some lances off.
No, what do I want to have that for? You know, where are they?
It
We don't
works,
have
that's
that.
why.
I suppose your servants do that. The cleaning up outside.
Yeah,
normally,
we've got
don't they?
people
So,
for that sort of thing.
Yeah,
you know?
we've got people. Yeah,
We have people.
Thinly
I'll
clothed
ask them.
plumbers. They come and do their street sweeping bit. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was a bit sort of like, when you spend like a good hour and a half, and it's works a bit crazy at the moment. So I was like, I carved out some time, and I went, I'm just going to sit here quietly and have a go at it. And I was like going, it's not doing too bad, but the stuff's just not setting. It's doing my head in. And then I went on the WhatsApp, and Adam came back quite nicely and said, no, do this with the super glue, etc., etc. I was like, oh, okay, great, okay, that's working. Put it down, went to get a coffee, dog jumps up, smack. Oh, yeah.
Oh.
The dog learned some new words.
Yes.
But after that, I was like going, I'm going to put it aside now because I'm a little bit frustrated.
So this is another week before you're even able to get to undercoating stage with the hussars.
Yeah, because then I was back onto PowerPoint slides, which is awfully boring, but it's too strong a dose of reality, unfortunately.
You're doing PowerPoint slides of how to stick hussar wings on.
Not hussar wings. It's how to stick different groups together, but that's a different story, and various spreadsheets.
Yes.
Or super glue.
So has your entire painting week been assembling some hussar wings and then having that screwed over by your dog?
Yeah, basically. Blown out of the way. I was going to have a break and then just do the undercoat and everything else, have it already, because usually with this sort of stuff, I let them set for 24 hours because then you spray and it's not going to mess up. Because I find sometimes when you spray undercoat and things are still setting, it doesn't actually let it dry properly. So it becomes brittle. So I was wanting to, I was going to stick them all together, get them all ready, get them all go. Then I can undercoat and everything else in a day because I was like, wow, nice weather as well. Yeah, kind of blown out the window with that.
Okay. So a week of slim pickings, but so that means we've got to go to someone who's probably done quite a lot. And I'm just going to go, Tamsin, let's just pick you out roundabout of the lineup, and let's see what you've been up to this week with your
one full more album
basing of the 6 mil people
figures comes up.
Yeah, look, it's an army.
Yes. Well, half of what you can see is half of what I painted. I think last week
that's my monthly output.
Last week I finished painting them and did varnishing the next day after we recorded and got them all onto base and finished for basing on Sunday, I think it was.
Oh, that's really nice.
They look cute.
They do
Yeah,
super
so
cute.
in a minute you're going to see a couple of
I like the blue
Some of those
on that.
flags have got some of those flags have actually got designs on them. Please tell me they're printed.
They're printed.
Oh, thank the Lord for that. Wow.
The blue pops
6
nicely.
mil,
Which
that
blue
really
is
would've
that
been
then?
scary.
That was Vallejo's. It's blue or intense blue. Can't remember.
Not that we were
okay.
talking about how many different blues have you got last week, but
No, we
that
did.
is quite
Well,
nice one.
I think you lose some points for it not being Humbrol, but I think that's last week's podcast, so we'll let you move on.
Yeah.
Did you dry brush those then to pick out the bits on the edge of the horses then, or are they just straight?
Have you painted the hooves on the 6 mil horses?
I've painted for socks. The hooves just end up but either colour of a base effectively. So no.
Wowee.
I think on a couple of the figures here you can see that I actually missed when I was doing the basing. I didn't spot on a few of them that the basing mix had gone up legs or backs of figures. So I need to go back through and sort of with a
No, you don't. No, you don't.
brush
This is one of the great problems of photographing Wargames figures and then blowing them up. They always look worse once they're in.
But mud
full
always
screen.
comes up horses anyway.
Yeah, I think as you can see now, you can see a couple of the horses have got
some sand up the bases. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
that
why they
does
get
happen,
brushed
doesn't
down
it?
afterwards. That's why horses get brushed down when you bring them in.
Yeah. So I'm leaving this running. So during this week, slideshow running. This week I'd said I'd placed orders, either bases. I'd ordered from more bases, so bases and a couple of other bits. And foam trays from products for Wargamers arrived on Wednesday.
That's really quick, then, isn't it?
Thursday or Friday for either US power reinforcements I'd ordered from North Star also arrived. So I've got those all prepped, and when we get to the end of the Confederates, which is just starting to see now.
Yep.
I used to think of where I've got to with the US paras, and while I had bases, suddenly had a thought. Oh, just a second.
Those Confederates are awesome. They really are.
Paras, which I think I bought during lockdown 2.0.
Okay. This is the one where you accidentally bought another company.
And I got those based, stuck those on bases as well, and
We're looking good,
so
mate.
your Confederate artillery there are in sort of greys and browns. Then they've got little red bits around their caps. Is that artistic license or is that a real thing?
That was a real thing.
Yeah.
Damn.
I think in theory they had different colour caps for branch of service, didn't they?
Caps had a red band round for artillery, yellow band for cavalry, and thin blue piping for infantry.
I have to go back and I might have to go back and redo some of my 10mm then, because that gives them a real extra little bit of colour, doesn't it? Because normally that's an army of just grey.
That I think was a
I
theory.
could go back
to
and do
actually
my
have
15mm.
uniforms.
Yeah, 10mm. I can just about do this sort of detail in 10mm that you've done in 6 there, really, which is quite fun. So is this a rule set that when you've got dismounted cavalry, it has the horses on the bases? Do they move and fight as a dismounted unit rather than swapping them in and out?
I'd swap a dismounted base of dismounted cavalry for a base of mounted cavalry if it came to that. I can't remember what's in the rules.
How the rules actually work, right? Okay, so there's just so many of them.
So yeah.
No, they do look like proper little squadrons there of people with those very effective little two-tone flags for sure.
Yeah, the Gidons are actually quite easy to paint on. Paint like that. So.
Go back to the paras. I think you've got a full company now.
Yeah, I think your mouse must have slipped and you ordered a few more in on the sly from those.
Yeah, I saw that, and it's like that
isn't
a full
just
company.
Bases, is it?
Yeah, with reinforced heavy weapons platoon.
So on the left hand, where the mouse is, where the cursor is now, do you see the cursor?
Absolutely. No, so we got a load of paras. There looks like a lot of men
there. Those 8, you got 2 bazooka teams and 4 BARs.
This is bazooka teams for a battlefield in which the Japanese didn't field tanks.
Yeah, they did. Pillar, they had 18 tanks.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
You also see the blowing up bunkers and things, couldn't you?
Yes, that was the main bit. But I think that'll be for if I use them later on. You got sort of a casualty base there, which will be a jump-off point probably for chain of command. You've got a couple of specialists there, so I think there's medic, sniper, forward observer, and an engineer. Then you've got a platoon, but missing 2 figures, 2 riflemen in the HQ squad, because I found out at the end when I was basing everything up, oh, damn it, missing 2 rifles.
Oh, yeah, so then that's why you buy the pack of 10 and get the next extra.
Yeah, so I might need to buy another pack. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you might well do. Yeah.
So you're saying the rifleman packs are a gateway drug?
Yeah, they are.
Have you done the texture on the bases before undercoating here?
Yes.
Or not? You have?
Yeah.
Okay. And
it's just, I think then you don't risk. It's less risk of messing up the paint job.
Yeah, that's true actually. Yep. No, I think at the big scale figures, that's certainly worth doing, isn't it?
It's easy enough to do that when it's on singly based figures.
Yeah.
But I have done that on group based figures as well.
Okay.
One army.
So this is the picture of them undercoated. Has the weather been good enough over the last couple of days for you to get them undercoated yet, or?
Well, you see that thing at the back.
Yeah.
That's my airbrush spray booth.
So you're weather agnostic.
I airbrush prime.
Right, you're weather agnostic then. Damn. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So middle board, you got a full platoon, and you got a sustained fire machine gun team. So that will either be tripod mounted. So I'll use it either as medium or heavy machine gun, depending how I feel. And on third board, you got the Polish paras.
Were there Polish paras in wherever it was? No,
they weren't in New Guinea. But I thought,
no.
What I'm doing basing, might as well get them out.
Do a bit of Arnhem stuff because
it's done as well.
Is it Arnhem? Is it the anniversary of Arnhem next year, or something? Or is it? No,
it was 75th anniversary to 2019, so it's a couple of years.
I know a lot of Poles did Italy with Monte Cassino and things. I don't know if Polish paras were there.
No,
mountain troops. I think
Polish Para Brigade only saw action at Arnhem. Well, Arnhem and Nijmegen area.
Actually, no, that was it. It was the para landing to take the bridges on the Rhine was sometime. I think it was this week just gone. Which
Operation
Verity was it called?
Varsity.
Varsity, and that was that a bigger para landing than Arnhem?
Yeah,
and
Yes,
it worked.
Was it? Yes, it was overall.
But I suppose it wouldn't be quite such a
But it's
dramatic
the
title for a film.
largest
would it?
parachute drop in one day.
Yeah,
but the fact that they were already over the Rhine by that point,
it would, it wouldn't be called a bridge too far. It'd be like several bridges that we all managed to achieve quite comfortably.
Yes.
Well, not landing on an SS Panzer division kind of helps.
Yeah, I suppose if you drop more paras, you're going to miss some sometime, aren't you? Well, they were slightly degraded by then. Okay, interesting. All right.
Yes,
well,
we've got those done. I'll be doing priming tomorrow. As I said, that'll be black primes using airbrush.
And then they'll be done by the time we talk next week.
I'll start off doing a couple of test figures just to see how the painting scheme works.
Okay.
Or launching onto doing a full platoon.
This means war.
So Simon, I think you're obviously up next. Let's go Antipodean and dial you in from your kitchen. So tell us how your week of painting has it been quite as inspiring as Tamsin's finishing a whole American Civil War army?
Yeah, nothing as inspiring as Tamsin, but I have managed to complete 5 units of Macedonian companion cavalry. So I've done the four companion cavalry without a general, and I've done a separate unit with a general included. Yeah, when you're on the museum website, you find they have bags of generals. So you need to buy 1 or 2 just so you can really make it obvious. That has a general included, that one doesn't.
Wow. And are those new companions? I'm trying to think whether I've seen the companions in the new range, or are they old range?
These are all the new range. So like what you were saying before they look really good with the computer generated skull.
Yeah.
But when you get hold of them, the detail is quite fine. So when I was looking at, say, the pikemen and also the cavalry, you could see the chest plate. You could see a little bit of detail, but especially around the waist and hips where you'd see all the leather tassels and the flap things, the detail's very, very fine. And and I did note when I base coated a little bit, a lot of the detail disappears. With a wash, it does come out. Yeah, if you were a little bit too enthusiastic, you would lose a lot of detail. They still look quite nice, but the detail compared to some other ranges, the museum ones is definitely more suited for someone who can do light washes rather than using more of the ham-fisted approach that I sometimes do.
Yeah, I say it's kind of, I feel like 4 different emotions about them. I like the fact that they're done. They are actually nice poses. The detail is there, but it's not. Seeing the 3D render is good, but it's bad, and it's But ultimately, they're still low price, nicely posed figures that when they're packed together, they look fine.
Yeah, so I think of, like, if I compare them to, say, Lancashire models who make cheap price point, the quality is not as good as museum, but because they are slightly rougher models, they do, because they've got lots more depth to them. They do lend themselves to a bit of a ham-fisting painting style, and with a wash, they can't, at 3 foot, you look at them and go, actually, they look really good. I couldn't tell the difference to Legia Heroica in the painting that I can do compared to, say, Saunders or Tamsin. Then you look at, say, Essex miniatures. So you've added an extra £1.50 per pack of miniatures, and the detail is sort of similar. So, it really comes down to which ones you like and which troops suit the style of painting and the type of army you want to design. I like museum. I've been, they were my first historical army I ever bought back in Australia. I bought early Imperial Roman Museum and have been hooked with them ever since. They're quite nice. They're just simple. They work, £3.
And actually, I kind of feel that, you're supporting a good initiative.
Yeah.
And, that 3D rendering is just a good idea. And, but I'm really conflicted looking at these Persians. It's like they're great, but they're very thinly detailed. But I guess it's what you expect out of them, really.
One of the things I thought was quite neat, and I guess this is a part of the advantage of using the 3D models, is it allows museum miniatures to leverage very good poses for different armies. So if I look at the general in the Alexander the Great army, it's the same cavalry pose as the Roman Imperial Roman general. Same horse, same pose. The only difference really is, the Roman one, both have got the legs exposed. The Romans got a slightly different, chest plate, waist and skirt and all that stuff, and different helmet and sword. But 90% of it's quite similar. So I'm guessing for him, because you can do it all electronically, you get a good model. You go, right, I'll keep that for the general, and then you can just value add on to, you're now Greek, you're now Roman, you're now this, you're now that, rather than having to make a fresh green mold every time. So you can change things and use a really good model quite quickly.
It's kind of like Lego people and popping on different hats, isn't it, for them, I guess, sort of thing. But so, what goes down. So has it been those companions? Yeah, that'd been the main piece of work.
Just the companions, but I think, when you get them on table, they're going to look quite good, because I use a couple of the different packs. I've got some with the javelin charging in, other ones with the javelin or lancers pointed upwards, a couple of generals, and so you get quite a dynamic looking pack rather than the usual monopose of charge.
Yeah, I must admit, every now and then I look at my Essex companions and think, should they go in, the dip box and be redone? Because I think I did them a long, long time ago. But I'd say you're only ever using kind of half a dozen. I think, I think for me this week, I've said a couple of times, I've got sucked into doing too many projects at once. I've just got too many things on the go, which I think is a problem for mass undercoating. You end up with loads of stuff that's undercoated because you just do an undercoating blitz over everything. You think, I'm going to stick it all on lollipop sticks and I'm going to undercoat a lot, then I'll have that all done and I can come back to them. Then you go, I'll start doing that one. So I'm still wading through these Sparabara and archers and just giving them loads of different bits of color and experimenting with patterns to go on them as well. I'm still dibbling away at these 10mm figures as well. I've got 8 experimental sort of Italian communal mixed spear and bowmen that were re-dipped, and then I keep going to these Zeist and Thracians, which are really, really nice to do them, but they're black undercoated, the others are white undercoated. That's different. And then I've also got some Legio Heroica Ottomans as well, that when I've got the red paint out or the green paint out, and it tends to be paint color dependent. If I've got a color that I think this will work across a load of them, I'll tend to do a lot with that particular color, and I'll do the Ottomans and some of the Persians and some of the medievals. And then other colors, you go, no, this is a color just for the Thracians. It's kind of a dirty khaki green. They're kind of hillmen and stuff like that, Bosch. But it just means that if I was to actually count the number of figures that I've got that are part painted and are sort of underway, there's probably something ridiculous, like kind of 120 of them across 3 or 4 different ranges, and it's a real challenge. But I did manage to get 8 Legio Heroica Arab clubmen painted up this week that have been hanging on for a while, using some contrast paints and stuff like that. Using, I think it's Skeleton Horde on white
Arab
as
clubmen.
the color. Arab clubmen.
You've got to explain about Arab clubmen. It sounds like something in the West End.
No, they're Al Saria clubmen. I think they're in one army. It might be the Seljuks or one of those Egyptian somethings one, and it's one unit of I think medium two-handed cutting weapon men that we use to club people. I don't know what, and it's
so
like
this is your random unit that comes in to surprise people.
Well, possibly, but if you're fielding that army, you're going to go, you've got a clubman, aren't you? Because they're cool. And it was a figure that Legio Heroica did. So when me and Dave did that order before Christmas, before Brexit, it was like, what else can I order? I'd order those because they're kind of cute, and they've got sticks with big square metal things on the end of them that would knock your head square rather than knock it off. And they're just cute little figures. So I've got those, and there were 8 of them, but I chucked all 8 on a 40 by 40 base because I think you can sort of use them as heavy infantry as well.
So you're not doing 50 by 50s then?
No, not 50 by 50s this time. No, we'll save that until version 5 comes out. I think that will probably be the step change for version 50 by 50. So there's just been a lot of stuff that's kind of been moving forwards, but nothing other than this one unit has been resolved. But I can kind of see that I'm getting to a tipping point with either the Thracians or the Persians, that at some point they would just get close enough to being done, and then it'd be like, they're in touching distance of being done, I'm going to get them sorted. But maybe it'll be driven by some of the stuff in the new rules or whatever, or maybe it'll just be one of them gets that bit closer. But other than that, it's been doing some actual proper DIY outside. So I might have to paint part of the fence as well. But I do sit there thinking, would it be better if I undercoated it in Halford spray paint first? Would that make the paint stick better to the wood? But possibly not. So yeah. Other than that, it's been not a lot actually finished and achieved, but a lot of things kind of moving forwards on the painting front this week.
That's kind of what I did when I was painting all these museum figures. I didn't look like I was getting anywhere, but if I picked up a color, I think, which figures can I use this color for? And almost surreptitiously, you find that, as you say, there comes a tipping point, and then they're almost done, and they're at a stage where you can finish them quite easily.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm hoping comes into action. But it just still feels quite a long way off at the moment, as I keep staring at these Persians with different types of inks and different types of paint techniques all over them. And it's, when I start doing the patterns as well, that's going to be another world of pain, I think, to get done. But that's the pain of painting. And I think that probably means it's time to move on to our next, always angrily pain, the pain of anger, possibly, in terms of features. And we all step aside for this week's episode of I'm Sorry, I Think You're an Arse. Coming up next on Madaxman Radio, it's I'm Sorry, I Think You're an Arse, the antidote to informed discussion shows. At the piano this week is Scott Joplin, and your chairman is Sir Humphrey Humphreyson. Hello and welcome everybody to this week's edition of I'm Sorry, I Think You're an Arse. You join us this week from the Cosmos Concert Hall in Great Snoring, Fakenham in Norfolk. Located in the east of England, visitors can climb to the top of a nearby church spire, where they'll be greeted with a view encompassing 7 different counties. On a clear day, it's sometimes even possible to catch sight of Norwich off in the distance, despite the many prominent warning signs advising against this. Look, we're here in this glorious venue, and without further ado, I think I will cede the floor to Mr. Adam to tell us what's been bugging you this week. What is the theory that you're putting in front of us?
Well, when you say what's been bugging me this week, it's actually what's been bugging me for the past 3 decades. To be perfectly honest. And I just want to point out earlier on when you said it's going to be angry, I've just got to say I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed, okay? The topic this week that I want to talk about is wargame shows, war games conventions, and why they're just so rubbish, to be honest. Now, before I get on to what I want to say about it, for the people listening, that probably is at least plural now, which is good. The people listening, I just want to say how we sort of like sort out doing this part of the podcast is we have a chat on What Is Up, saying, I've got a subject, I'll talk about this subject. And this time round, I said, I'll talk about war game shows, war games conventions. And then just because I said that, on the What Is Up group, I just want to read out a couple of replies I got. It's not prompting, and this isn't me sort of saying, tell me bad stuff about war game shows. This is just what people that I'm talking to now, without any prompting, gave back. And bear in mind, I'm supposed to be the the unsubtle one. I'm supposed to be the one that sort of like it says what I feel about wargaming things, but this isn't me. Okay, this isn't me. This is one of the sort of like more diplomatic members of the group. Okay, so the first one is on the subject of why wargames conventions are so rubbish. The first reply unprompted I got was demo games, participation games, traders all selling the same thing. Crap sandwiches made by someone's wife with thinly sliced tomato that are sold cheap because we're all tightwads, even though we can all afford proper food. Lots to go for there. Even before we get to the wargamers have no social skills and they all stink. Right. That is one from one of the more laid back, charismatic members of the group. That's what they replied. Now, I would like to point out most of that I agree with, especially about the crap food. But I would just like to say, when Attack used to be held at the Corn Exchange in Devizes, the catering there, they did a mean bacon sandwich. So overall, it is crap. But a big shout out to the Devizes catering massive, okay? Because that is
you're saying to a big shout out to one item on the menu at one venue. That venue hasn't been used for nearly a decade.
Well, that kind of proves my argument, which I'm going to get onto. But that is genuine. I'm not putting that in to prove my argument. That was a good bacon sandwich. Okay. Now,
before you move on, I'm just going to say, so food at Madaxeman, so the showground, food there is good.
Okay, right. I've never been there. I'll take your word for it.
It's not even close. I mean, even Simon was happy with the vegetarian stuff when we were in Rome. I mean, we won't even talk about celery stew, but
that wasn't a trade show though, Peter, was it? That was definitely not a trade show.
But that was an Italian restaurant in Rome.
No, it wasn't.
An Italian restaurant in Rome.
That was where we were having the Wargames Worlds for ADLG.
Yes, it wasn't a trade show.
It wasn't a trade show.
It wasn't a Wargames trade show at all.
You can always sum up a good wargaming show by, we were at a BritCon a few years ago, and we had a couple of Swedish gentlemen over, and they commented on, do you guys have any other food color than yellow?
And beige, yeah.
Beige.
And after 3 days of just looking at beige color.
Which sounds suspiciously like that Chinese restaurant we went to one time in Burton. That
I think that was brown, wasn't it?
There was
Chinese restaurant in Burton. You were just asking for it anyway.
That might have been Humbrol 155 Olive Drab, actually.
But again, enough.
The Indian restaurant in Burton is quite nice.
And this is a point. This, although in a way this proves my point. I'm saying sort of like wargaming food, wargaming conventions are crap. You've just taken a small, unimportant piece of wargames conventions and completely ripped it apart. So again, this is all fuel for the fire. Now, the next reply after that one of that's not even before we get on to the social skills and the smell is, this is a more personal story, and I can feel this person's pain, okay? This is their reply. The scrum to get to the bring and buy, where most of the product is crap, and if you're trying to sell something, you have to queue up behind some smelly oik in a grimy anorak who has a carrier bag full of crudely painted Warhammer vehicles, all of which he is selling individually, and he doesn't have a pen on him and is not filled in the booking in form. Now, that sounds like true story. That sounds like someone's real...
That's mandatory. Those people are hired to be part of the queue for every bring and buy. Surely.
That sounds like Reading. Each time I go to Reading, you see those people.
Yeah, so there you go. This is sort of like, this is the common experience of Wargame. We go to Wargame shows, but even when I said, I'm going to do something on how crap they are, even without me prompting, two people went, yeah. This is my experience, okay? Now, and my reply to that...
I actually think that may be the reason why eBay has grown so successfully. It's that person who queues with a bag full of single-painted Warhammer vehicles in bring and buys.
Quite possibly.
Well, and you don't have to deal with them.
That's the real, genuine experience of Wargame shows. But I now just want to read out my reply to these two what is up messages. My reply was, all true, but all minor annoyances. I mean, that is all a pain in the ass, but that's just getting into the foothills of the genuine crapness that is Wargames conventions and Wargame shows, okay? Now, the title of this, it's not a rant, actually. The title of this measured, thoughtful argument is Wargame shows. What's the fucking point of them then? Okay? Because they're pointless, and that's not even the worst thing. The worst thing is why I actively dislike them, but I'm going to save that to the end. Now, my main argument is this. Wargame shows now are basically the same. They do basically the same things that they did in the 1970s and 1980s. Now, as we discovered last week, there were some things in the 1980s that were crap in the 1980s and are crap now, okay? Mullets, Findus crispy pancakes, Humbrol paints. Yeah, it was true, Tim. Don't just pull that face, okay? Crap then, we just knew no better. They're still crap now. Now, there are some things that were good in the 1980s that are crap now, okay? That would be...
Rolf Harris?
No, that was...
So your premise is you've grown up, Wargame Shows haven't?
No, it's not about me growing up. There are some things that were crap, that were good in the 1980s that are crap now. ZX Spectrum, Grange Hill, Wargame Shows were all good in the 1980s, okay? ZX Spectrum, Lords of Midnight computer game on the ZX Spectrum, for the time and place, one of the all-time great computer games ever made. Crap now, okay? Grange Hill, Zamo's, the story of Zamo's descent into drug addiction, petty crime, and overdose.
Just say no.
Before he dies.
Just say no. We all remember it.
Precisely. Was brilliant for its time. Okay, it gripped my young teenage soul. But
now, what about Tucker?
No, it just before my time, a little bit too old. But now I would say it's a bit crap.
And he was rubbish on Dancing on Ice as well. So
yeah,
Wargame Shows. At the time, they did some things that were necessary. Okay, did some things that were useful. Okay, but now they don't. So they're crap. What the Wargame Shows? What did they do, and what do they do now? Now, the big thing about Wargame Shows in the past was you get to turn up and you get to see stuff before you buy it. Instead of paying £2.50 in postal orders for the minifigs catalogue, which was fucking brilliant. I love the minifigs catalogue. Okay, it was like that thick and it was just full of photographs with all their own. And then what you do is you go through the catalogue and then you fill in your letter and you get your mum.
So what you're basically saying is instead of video killed the radio star, it's internet killed the Wargame Show.
Well, again, let me develop the argument, mate. That's one of them. So just get back in your box, get back in your penthouse suite, wherever it is you're hanging out at the moment, Peter, and listen, okay? Go into Wargame Shows, being able to see figures, being able to fondle figures before you handed over your cash. This was a really, really good thing. But now, if I want to go shopping for Wargames figures, I'll go to a shop. There's loads of bloody shops. I mean, as I say, today, I just drove down to a shop and bought the ones. And at Wargame Shows, it's always just full of people and the stalls are too short, and it's just an unpleasant shopping experience. Whereas when I go to Enjoyment, there's plenty of room. I can chat to people. It's really nice. So in the 80s, that was good and necessary. These days, not so much. Another thing Wargame Shows do, right, is participation games. Participation games are games that if you played war games before, you don't really want to play because they're very simplistic and not that interesting. Okay, they don't appeal to war gamers. Okay, they appeal to my children, which is good. But I'm not going to a crash. I'm going to a war game show. But they don't appeal to anybody else. People say, but it's all about getting people involved in the hobby, which is the other reason for demonstration games, which is basically a display with loads of people with no social skills sat around it, not talking to anyone. Okay, people that don't play war games do not go to war game shows. They might have done in the past when it was in their local town hall. Okay, they might have been wandering past, but these days they don't. Salute now at bloody what's it called down in the Docklands. Yeah, it's just in a hangar. No one's going to be wandering past thinking, "Oh, this looks interesting. Wonder what's going on there."
Well, actually, it's funny because it's the same time as the marathon.
Yeah,
when you go to get your stuff for the marathon.
I think there's a huge crossover audience between people who do triathlon. No, it's triathlon, isn't it? Not the marathon.
No, it's marathon. Because I picked up my kit at the same time as I went to Salute.
It's been triathlon 1 year.
People who do triathlons and marathons are ideal fodder for war gamers.
Jim, you've probably I might have to concede this point because, to be fair, if you got a group of 6 average war gamers and 6 average triathletes together in a room, you probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So you're right, there probably is a crossover there. But another thing, okay,
the level of geekiness, you're probably right. but just
Beachhead
be talking
in
about.
Bournemouth. Talking to Pete, who runs Beachhead. Last time Beachhead run, he did a whole thing with the local radio and the press to get interest and to get people away. And he basically said no one turned up that wasn't going to come because they weren't wargamers. So this concept of wargame shows to get people involved in a hobby is a nonsense. It's a lie. If you want to get people involved in a hobby...
Well, that's because it's Bournemouth and you bring the average age down by about 40 years.
That's not true. That's just sort of like a cheap shot at Bournemouth, which is a lovely place. And it's a very young place and it's really cool. So fuck off. Right. So people don't go to wargame shows unless they're wargamers. If you want to put on a participation game to get people involved in a hobby, go to your local library and do it on a Saturday when they're open, of course, okay? But now, participation demonstration games, waste of time. The shopping is a waste of time. Now, you might say, and you might all come back at me and you might say, but I've got happy memories of wargame shows. I mean, Pete, that charming story you told of losing your virginity behind Kensington Town Hall at 1986 Salute. I mean, that was beautiful to hear, okay? That was lovely. But that doesn't make wargame shows any better now, okay? So I'm not interested in your memories of what happened 30 years ago, because there might have been a point in the past, but these days they're not. Okay?
You've got better memory than me on that one.
Well,
he was there, so one of you.
I was like, it was you. You had that one week
there as well.
Damn.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Does the other bloke remember it as well?
Well, no,
He's telling us about it.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's just let's not go there, because then we'll have to talk about Tim's experience behind the octagon at Sheffield Triples with the other two people, which is just this. As I say, these are stories we shouldn't dwell on. Okay, so wargame shows.
Does that go into your scale conversation about scale inflation?
I'm just going to walk away from that one, actually.
Yeah. Stick on the red wine, Peter. I think that's it. Yeah.
So, wargame shows, okay. Pointless for shopping, because I can go to shops for shopping. Pointless for demonstration games, because that's just looking at someone looking at toy soldiers. That's kind of rubbish. Pointless for bringing by, because eBay exists, okay. The world's changed. You don't want to go up and that story of sort of like standing behind Mr. Sweaty Anorak, okay? You don't want to do that anymore. The world's changed. All the things that wargame shows were useful for 30 years ago, they're not useful for anymore. But they've either not changed and died, okay? Sheffield Triples, okay? It's kind of died. Northern Militaire, it's died. Or they've changed and they've tried to become something else, and now they're just soulless and a bit rubbish. I mean, it's Salute, when it was at Kensington Town Hall, was kind of sort of like nice and lovely. And then it went to Olympia and it got a bit crap. And then it went to that bloody hangar in the Docklands. And it's just, I went there the first year it was there, and it was just like, this is just soulless and it's rubbish and I don't want to do it anymore. And it's like, do you remember the show Armageddon? Okay. What a great name for a wargame show, Armageddon. It changed its name to Colours to be more popular. And it's like, it's not about being a big convention and trying to get the crowds in. It's about doing something unique for wargamers.
I'd like to disagree, but I can't, because I'm remembering back to the time when you were saying about supposedly, dealing with people who are not wargamers, who happened upon.
Thank God for that. I thought
coming in.
You were remembering back to the time you lost virginity, which would be. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, my memory's not that good, mate. But however, it did hark back to when people just actually wandered in and were like surprised and interested
Horrified.
that people were, and I just remember, more recently being in Milton Keynes when we have the War Games competition in the middle of the shopping centre, which quite frankly is a little bit weird at times, but you have people wander along and ask questions and everything else. But most of the time, it's like people are just sort of like going, give me that sort of look as though an elephant suddenly appeared in the middle of the shopping centre. They're not quite believing what they're seeing as they're walking by. But I agree. It used to be a bit more of a crossover, because it used to be a bit more a niche. But now you've got like, Games Workshop on virtually every high street sort of thing. It's people have seen it. They've seen the different stuff about it. They'll know a lot more about it. So
They already know they're
they
not.
almost qualify out it.
It's not new. It's not interesting. But that's still all. Everything that other people said is all true about why they're rubbish. Everything I've just said of they're a bit pointless is also true of why they're rubbish. But this doesn't get to the heart of why I really dislike wargame shows. And getting to the heart of why I really dislike wargame shows and I don't want to go to them anymore is this. Right, I'm a wargamer. Now, when I say that, I don't mean to say I play with toy soldiers, I play war games, okay? Because I drive a car, but I'm not a motorist, okay? I quite often cycle to work, but I'm not a cyclist, okay? I've been known to make love to the mother of my children, but I'm not a motherfucker, okay? But I am a wargamer. It's part of my identity. It's part of who I am, okay? It's what I do. It's part of my life, okay? In a way that driving a car or a bicycle isn't. And when I go to a wargame show, okay, it's full of wargamers. And for better or worse, these are my people, okay, because they're wargamers too, same as me. This is about my self-identity. And when I say for better or for worse, I actually mean for worse. Because what I see when I look around is it's holding up a mirror to me, okay? This is revealing something about me and who I am and what I do, okay? And I do not like what I see, okay? It's at other times, all other times, I can avoid the reality of who and what I am, okay? But when I'm at a wargame show, I'm surrounded by a mirror. I can't look away. I'm forced to face the reality of my life. And my God, it scares me. I really, really don't want to see that. And this is a reason why I have no interest in going to wargame shows and they should be banned. The end. Thank you.
So you've basically got an issue with confronting reality.
I think you're missing. You know, there's a lot of comeback on that one, and I think you're nearly
there's a lot of comeback on that.
You're nearly there with a lot of points, but I think you're just missing all the opportunities, and maybe kind of working through it backwards. You know, that piece about holding up a mirror. Surely, you know, as we all look here, as the I was going to say the boy band, but that's clearly not right. As the hearsay, let's say we're the hearsay of war games when they were young and fashionable, and before one of them had become a racist or something like that, with dogs and things, and something to do with Australia. But so we are the young, fashionable group of people. So surely you should look on that point of view. You know, even though we're all in our mumbles, you should look on the opportunity to go into a war games event and have that regular reminder that you know you are much more beautiful. You've got much fuller head of hair. You're much more charming than all these people. It's a mirror that looks back, and as long as you don't actually look too closely in the mirror and squint and approach it in an air of Stygian darkness, there's actually sort of a positive image that can come out of that through that regular opportunity to compare yourself.
That would be true, but what you're actually doing there is what I can do when I'm not a wargame show. I'm ignoring the reality of the situation. I can think of me and my personal friends as the boy band of wargame shows, and I can also think of you as not wargamers. Okay, we've got Tim, the successful businessman. We've got Andy, the lawyer. We've got Peter, whatever it is Pete does.
Educator.
It's we got Simon, the computer geek. It's all fine, you know what I mean? I can think of you as not wargaming, so I can look away. Okay, I can look away from the dark black hole in your soul. Okay, and if I can look away from the dark black hole in all your soul, it means I can avoid that in mine as well. Okay,
why do you regard it as a dark black hole in your soul? Why not just, it's a part of you. It's a part
Peter,
of you.
I think you've not been to some of the venues where this used to be held.
No,
going back to Devices, the basement underground where the bar was, that was a bit of a dark black hole of the soul,
I never did Devices. I did Excel.
I think there's a lot of people who never
Sheffield.
came back from there, but yeah.
Adam, let me just
Well, they're buried underneath.
If you didn't have war games and the enthusiasm you put into this hobby.
Yeah.
Given the year we've just had with lockdown and
Yeah.
COVID and stuff, do you think your mental health would be better or worse than it is now?
Oh no, for having
Plead the
war
fifth.
games.
Plead the fifth.
No, for having war games is like useful for me. You know what I mean? If I didn't have war games, I would probably be, I don't know, a serial killer just to get the tension out. So no, being a war gamer is
This year though, Andy, I think you're shooting yourself in the foot in arguing with Adam here, because this is a year in which we've not been able to go to war game shows and meet anyone else, and we all.
But we have spent a lot of time playing war games, and that does do something for me. In the same way that murdering people does something for serial killers. Just because it does something positive for me doesn't make it a good thing. Okay.
But you see, the thing for me is I'm into a whole bunch of other things, like from like offshore sailing to various other bits and pieces. But the wargaming bit is just a part of me, and it's part of me that I enjoy, and it fulfills a section on me that is great. And going along to the shows every so often, I see people who are massively into certain things that, quite frankly, I'd never go anywhere near. But it's nice to go and see, and it's good. I get a good feeling about seeing other people enjoying other things, which I go along and see in Excel. And it's like, I remember one which was amazing. There was like a 40-foot whatever presentation of the Battle of Arnhem with all the different bridges, etc., etc. I was absolutely bloody amazing. Would I ever want to do it? No. Would I ever want to build it? No. Would I think wargaming it would be fun? No. But amazing.
Would you even talk to the people who put the effort in? Would you talk to the people who put the effort in?
Yeah, I did. I went and had a chat with them. Lovely people, fantastic. They told me how they broke down and they had different battles and everything else and all that. I was like, wow, that's great. I prefer the competition stuff.
This all sounds convincing because you're convincing yourself. You're giving yourself permission and you're giving yourself that excuse. If you were talking about that about any other subject or some other subjects, okay, you could say exactly the same thing and you would see the reality of what you're saying, okay? Because you're talking about you like watching other people do interesting specialist things. Would you do it yourself? No, but you have fun watching other people do it. Are you talking about wargaming, or are you talking about those specialist videos you used to collect? You know what I mean? It's like it's because it's wargaming, you're excusing it. Okay. Whereas if it's something else,
I think that description of demo games was fabulous. You went there, you were very impressed with it, you're really inspired with it. You were so impressed with it, you've already said you would never do that yourself ever. So from the amount of work that those people have all put in to creating that, to inspire you and motivate you to never do that yourself ever at all.
This is why, as
honestly,
a club, Central London Wargamers, I like as a club, because we go along and it's almost like a rite of passage about how you minimize the bag or the box that you bring along to play a game, because a lot of us go and play international, so around here, and it's like, how do you do it so you've got the most impact for the most square inch for when we travel, we go game and everything else, whereas other people usually have the car with everything built in.
That's the antithesis of a war game show, because a war game show is about bringing vans worth of stuff to create, spending a whole year to create a whole scenario to fight something that.
But it's what people enjoy. It's like when I go to other things, people enjoy.
Peter, you're saying
some of
you
my
are
other
not
hobbies.
those people. You are absolutely not those people.
But it's nothing wrong with it. It's just
nothing wrong
they
with
get their enjoyment out of different things.
And Peter, again, my attitude is, as long as it's consenting adults and no one's getting harmed, none of my bit is fine. Okay, they can do what they want. They can do their 1-to-1 scale version of Arnhem, and if they're enjoying it, I am genuinely happy for them. Okay, consenting adults, no one's been harmed, absolutely fine. But it doesn't mean to say I've got any interest in watching.
But you might find some game that you do find interesting, and even though you think, well, I could never manage to put that on myself, I did enjoy watching it. I remember seeing a really interesting game.
There are
Andy,
games.
sorry, no, Andy. Where did you see this game that you were interested in?
It was at Warfare, and it was they were doing a refight of Zeebrugge in 1918 with the ships that crashed into the harbour, and then the British
So you're saying
guys
the
came
last
ashore and
interesting demo game you saw was 103 years ago?
No.
Say like in Salute, where you have proper demonstration games either done by a club or a manufacturer, where there's no trade, there's no here buy my miniatures. It's here's a big ass table with the battle of Banana Land versus the Republic of Apples in 27.3 mil. Have a game. Here's a one-page set of rules and show you how the rules work. The Board Games Expo was more of here's my wargaming store. Do you want to buy some miniatures? I think deal.
But I think that brings up a really interesting point about what useful function exhibition demo games play within the hobby, because as you say, it is about the Republic of Apples versus the Imperial Emperor of Bananas in 27.8 mil, and someone crafts huge amounts of terrain, and a club lock themselves away for a year handcrafting perfect terrain. It's amazing. They've got scenery, they've got water moving about, there's moving pieces, there's flashing lights, there's explosions. The immense amount of effort that the most nerdy and geeky wargamers in the whole world of wargaming have had to put in for the last 12 months in order to get that means that they have been taken out of circulation and have not interacted at all with any of the rest of us, which actually, in terms of the social milieu of wargamers, has actually improved as a group our social skills
Tim,
by taking some of the most geeky people out of circulation for a year. I think that's a fantastic benefit.
Look, let's face certain facts. They've got out the way of me doing competition wargaming, so they're not getting upset.
That's the win.
When
that's
I'm in Max and I win. All right,
exactly.
So let's face facts on that.
That's a great
problem with your.
Adam, I mean, where do you want to go?
No. Wait.
See, the ultimate thing is like it's a collective that takes them and deals with people in a social understanding that keeps them happy, keeps them isolated, away from them trying to mess up my competition and get upset when I steamroll them.
Yeah. The problem with that argument is if they weren't doing it to go to a wargame show, they wouldn't leave their shed anyhow. And actually, going to the wargame show gives them an excuse to leave the shed.
Honestly, I think
that's fine. If they want to leave the shed and go to a wargame show, that's absolutely fine. I'm just saying that I want no part of it.
Most of the demonstration games is where there's no information about what the game is, who's putting it on. It doesn't even take 5 minutes to knock up an A4 sign. This such and such a club. This is the battle. This is the war. These are the rules we're using.
I think Townsend, you're looking at that the wrong way around, really. I think what that is, it's saying wargaming is a very broad and diverse hobby, but there are big pockets of people you absolutely do not want to interact with in any circumstances. And what those sorts of games are doing is highlighting and gathering together the small groups and clubs of people you do not want to talk to, and putting a big flag up with them, going, with the kind of people you don't want to talk to in wargaming. And I think that's another thing about wargames events, which, it highlights for you people you don't want to meet. And then the other thing, Adam, I think which it does is because they do pull in people just to mooch around, even though they don't want anything. All those other people you kind of know from competitions, or you bumped into, or used to go to the club, or on the internet or whatever, but really you do not want to spend a whole evening with, or go out for dinner with, or bring your better half to meet their better half and the rest of it. You can bump into them at a war games competition, and you can have that like 3-minute conversation of, all right, what you painting at the moment? Yeah, what you do? Oh yeah, Battle of Berlingen. Yeah, okay. Oh, and giant robots, right? Look, sorry. Got to go. I've got to pick up an order from the Zeiston stand. And so you've got this opportunity to tick box a lot of this hierarchy of people that you absolutely don't want to meet, and just deal with them in quite an efficient way. So as a way of ticking the box for social interaction with people you really don't want to interact with, the efficiency that you can achieve at a wargame show and the quality of that interaction the other people think that they're getting with you is unparalleled. You can't do that on the internet, because on the internet, that you're going to get sucked into a long rambling discussion, and 3 Americans are going to come in and start telling you about Trump and bombing people, and then somebody else from like is going to come and say that you can't do this in this country, and then it's all going to go into weird stuff, and you're going to end up talking about Brexit, and it's going to take months of your life. But at a war game show, you can tick those people off in the social interaction box very efficiently in great numbers, with a ready-made excuse to get out.
No,
of it.
Tim,
So
what you said that's true. But again, the flaw in it's this, because what you've said is basically the same thing that happened to me when I used to talk to girls at parties, which is this. I'd be talking to a girl at the party, and she would say, oh, I've just got to go to the toilet, and disappear and never come back again. So you're saying it gives you the same opportunity to do that, yeah? Now, it does. However, that girl at the party didn't want to be talking to me in the first place. And those people at the war game show, I don't want to be talking in the first place. So if I just don't go to the war game show, I can just ignore them. And Tamsin, you see, I think
the problem is they're going to stalk you on the internet. That's the issue.
So Tim, you're telling me you've got war game groupies. This is what you're telling me.
Well, Tim does that, doesn't he? It's like
we all do. Yeah.
Tim's Mr. Rock and Roll war game star.
Yeah, no, Tamsin's got loads, many more comments on the Wargaming Guild blog than I get on mine, for sure. So
yeah, but Tamsin's got something interesting to say.
Yeah, you may be right. Yeah.
The reason I like war game shows, it gets me out of the house.
That's really worked over the last 12 months, hasn't it?
A lot of the shows, I get to meet people from around the country that I know, have good chats with them. Unlike Tim, most of my interactions tend to be a bit longer, possibly because the people I know aren't quite so bad, or for people who think they know me.
That might be something to do with my friends.
It's not the people. Yeah. It's not the other people. It's Tim. Tim just pretends to talk to people.
That could be it. Yeah. The other thing I think you've completely missed, Adam, which actually this whole discussion really, really proves, is there's two things that wargamers like to do. First of all, they like to be tight and think that they get a bargain. And secondly, they like to whinge about everything, and particularly about how much things used to be better in the past and they're not as good as they were, not as good as they are now. And war game shows do two of those things. So people will get on a train, pay for parking, pay for a burger, buy cups of tea, mooch around, deal with the toxic fog, all the rest of it, in order that when they walk away from Old Glory or Essex with their pack of soldiers that they've just bought, they can go, I've just saved £3.58, which is the Royal Mail small parcels up to 2 kilograms, postage cost. And they go, okay, I'll wipe out mentally all the money that's been spent here. So it allows wargamers to tick that deep psychological box to be complete tight bastards, even when they're buying something and making a saving, which makes no sense at all for Okay, then my final point then about why wargame shows are an absolute essential part of the ecosystem is that wargamers have a deep and abiding passion to say, this was much better in my day. Absolutely. And wargame shows are literally the physical manifestation, the moment in time at which you can check, eyeball right in front of you, how much worse and how much more miserable every single thing that you in your own personal little hobby bunker believe is going wrong with the hobby. But I believe that wargame shows allow wargamers to come and have some moment in time to whinge about. They can look at the manufacturer and say there used to be more. They can look and go, oh, everybody's doing the same figures now. They can look at the demo games and, oh, they were much better in my time. They can look at the competitions and go, oh, those people are really wankers. It gives them a chance to whinge about loads of things that they've got opinions about which are utterly wrong, all at one time, and then it brings all those kind of whinges back.
You're saying it's cathartic for some people.
It's cathartic for all wargamers because we're all a bunch of whingers who think things were much better in our day, and then it propels conversation on the internet for the next few months.
I totally disagree on that, Tim.
Let me ask you this, Tim: if things were so much better in the past, why do so many wargamers carry on playing?
Because the longer we carry on playing, the more we can whinge about, playing is an opportunity to meet other people and whinge about how much better things were in the past.
To be honest, Andy, the answer to that's inertia.
Yeah.
People do it because they're doing it.
They do it because they're doing it. So look, I think we've probably plumbed the depths of that one quite plumbingly. So we better go around the screen and say, so Adam, your proposition that war game shows are just a dreadful old waste of time, and maybe they served a function in the 70s and 80s, but like the Ford Granada, their day is done and they should be put out to pasture. Is that a strong proposition? And let's start there. Tamsin, what do you think?
I'm sorry, Adam, but I think you're an arse.
Mr. Finkel?
There's no doubt about it. Adam's an arse. He's a miserable git. He needs to chill out and look at a more positive way of life.
Peter, bearing in mind this is a comedy
shows.
Peter, yeah, this whole thing about this being a kind of comedy tongue-in-cheek feature. Right, do you want to have a go with that? Where do you want to go?
All right, chill out, guys. Chill out.
Yeah.
You see, I agree with Adam in certain aspects, and I really hate to actually say this because I love competitions. Competitions are my thing. The shows are a side level on there, and on that bit, I almost agree with him. But I think it's moving forward. I want 3D printing from designers and developers and manufacturers, and therefore he's in ours.
Okay, all right. Simon, what about you?
Regretfully, Adam, you are an arse. I quite enjoy shows. Yes, some of them are a bit dubious and ropey, but nothing beats, nothing is more enjoyable as a vegetarian going to a wargaming competition, having traveled halfway across the country to look at the food groups and going, yellow, beige, unidentifiable, and 7 pounds. It's, for me, that really says everything about the joys of wargaming.
I think finally, Adam, I think every single thing you've said is absolutely spot on. The concept is tired. It's really struggling. There's a lot of things, but I still come down to the fact that if we did not have a chance to all get together and remind ourselves of all those things, we would actually run out of things to talk about with wargaming and on the internet. So I think, yes, as every single element about them needs a refresh and needs a rethink. And there is a lot of turning the handle and doing the same as forever, which is almost a professional opinion there, and vaguely getting serious for a while. But I think that sort of reset point to do that and judge the industry is still too valuable. So on this one, my friend, I think, unfortunately, you are an ass. Well, as the Barkery sentence construction of time hits the English language of destiny, I see that that's all we've got time for on this week's episode. So we'll see you next week on I'm Sorry, I Think You're an Arse. So with that mercifully short episode of I'm Sorry, I Think You're an Arse fading into the background, we now come into the world of what games have been done. So Andy, in your interaction with other wargamers, which I understand you prefer to keep at a distance, if at all possible, possibly separated by an ocean, how's your week of gaming gone against Mr. Ray?
Oh, it went very well. I mean, unfortunately for him, he obviously wouldn't have approved of his reaction because he was cursing his dice unbelievably. He did a pretty shit dice, and on one particular turn, he rolled a 1 for each commander, which doesn't really help. But my Assyrian army beat his, whatever they were, Hurry Mittani, and shot them to shit and killed them, which is all very satisfying. But he's probably going to get his own revenge on me this week because he's using the New Kingdom Egyptians, fortunately before they get their armoured chariots, against my Syrians. This is a battle of Megiddo, which was about 1247 BC or thereabouts. So he's got a strategist. Yep.
Okay. So was there any kind of particular moments in the game other than him having terrible dice and swearing a lot? Was there any clevernesses, or actually, also what troops did you use for the chariots as well?
I use a standard stock Persian chariots. I mean, I found this Persian 2 chariot model, and that's my light chariot in whatever era I'm using, simply because I can find the bloody thing and relabel it.
Okay.
We're normally playing using the top-down view, so you just see the silhouette of a chariot or a blob of guys, so you don't really see what the uniforms are that closely. So, I mean, I know for you, when you film the games, you show them at the oblique angle, so they've got to look a bit more like what they're meant to be. But Dave and I don't really get too hung up about that.
Yeah, no, that's true. Okay, well, I think Simon, I think you had a game this week as well.
Yeah, so Saunders and I had a game of Renaissance. So we tried the good old classic game of 30 Years War Swedish. So Gustavus Adolphus versus the 30 Years War German. So the big Wallenstein, the last of the tercios. So the Swedes have come into Germany to pick a fight and say g'day, and brought their new fandangled formations and proved, yes, they were good. This is the reason why. So it was a interesting game of I deployed. So I won the initiative. I was the Germans. Completely misread Dave's deployment. Deployed troops in the very wrong way. Tried to redeploy to try and make create a breakthrough. Meanwhile, the Swedish infantry came storming across the table, got stuck into some tercios, and cracked through them after a little while. So it was quite an interesting game of redeployment, tercios doing what they could do best. Meanwhile, the Swedish salvo foot lined it up, got it all perfect, and then just charged in, and it was a thing of beauty.
Wow. Okay. So big slam. I suspect I used some of those figures myself actually, because I had a game against Tommy in AGLG, sort of standard AGLG, and I actually took Swiss because that's an interesting one to take on Tabletop Simulator. It's maybe not the best, or the most unusual or flexible army to take to a real event, but take it in TTS. And so I took them with I think I actually managed to get up to about 10 or 11 pikemen and hurled them in 3 blocks at a French ordnance French army that had an ally as well. And it was kind of, again, it was a nice, interesting game. It was just sort of, I kind of feel I have to put troops on table and see how they work before I get a view on using them. And what I was really focusing on was the resilience of the Swiss. It was kind of, if I start putting them into a few iffy situations or whatever, but just using them to grind down the opponent and the foot knights and things like that. So it actually worked quite well. And I didn't just hurl everything in straight away. There was a couple of times when I waited for a couple of turns to try and rally off some shooting hits on the basis that those elite pikemen are not going to get hit that often. So if they do take a ding from shooting, it's possibly worth rallying. And I did manage to get kind of the block of solid Swiss in a sort of staggered way into all the dismounted foot knights. And then also I managed to mug a really big ambush of halberdiers and longbowmen and things that kind of jumped out of the wood, and my 2 halberdiers did some pretty bad damage to them as well. So it was a really interesting game just to use Swiss, and I'm kind of looking forward, once we can all start playing again, to actually put some proper models on table. But I think by the time we start playing it almost will be V4, and that probably brings us on to our next section.
This means war.
So here we are with the V4 rules, which have come out so far on the French bit of the forum. So just running through them, for starters, the first one to come out is for initiative. 3 light infantry are now worth 1 light horse for initiative points. So Andy, I think you've got a view on this one.
Yeah, I think that's a very good idea. And it makes it attractive to have light infantry, whereas before you might think, well, what's the point? It would certainly help my early Hebrews. It would, I think, these Mesoamerican armies that you had a podcast about, which was very interesting. I think that would make a difference. Because it means that some armies could get 1 or 2 more initiative from their light infantry contingent, and that might give them a better chance of attacking, which might make it them a more interesting army.
Yeah, 3 is an interesting number, isn't it? Because I think a lot of armies have 3 or 4 light infantry, but once you get up to 6, it's actually quite a lot. So to get those extra points is suddenly quite hard.
And you've got to commit to it.
Yeah, but again, some of the biblical armies have got 1 light horse. So if you've got 1 light horse, and 3 light infantry, which is probably doable for most armies, it means you can get +1 on the initiative, which is worth having.
Yeah.
And some of the armies you need to take the light infantry, like if you got some of the heavy infantry stuff, to screen them to get in. There's no way of getting around it. You need to take that to get your army into contact.
Okay, all right. Well, next one up. Imperial Romans, probably early and middle. So auxiliaries can be heavy infantry now, which I think that's probably sort of a historically justified change that's gone through in some of the other army rules, other sets of rules for quite some years now. There are some infantrymen with two-handed weapon, which I guess is the Palestinian clubmen that were used against cataphracts and stuff. So the bowmen, those armored bowmen, can count as having pavis, I guess to represent their full armor. And there's a new concept of integrated artillery, a couple of units that are allowed to fire over legions and auxilia as well. So that's some interesting stuff for the Romans. Anybody got a view on that one?
What's integrated artillery? Is that artillery incorporated in an infantry or cavalry unit?
It says it's called integrated artillery. There's 2 units of it. It costs an extra point, and it's allowed to fire over legionaries and auxilia. But it's list
plus light
specific.
Artillery can move and shoot, which I think is fantastic because it's as though you've got the artillery moving up with you, a bit like having the archers but with the hit. So imagine you've got your line of Romans coming up and you're putting these shots in like they did in south of England, where they fired like 600 shots into the different groups. It's moving up with it, and it makes the say early Roman infantry so much more relevant and useful, whereas people used to sidestep around.
I don't think it's hugely relevant and useful. One thing it does do that I like is it scares the crap out of elephant-based armies, which I think is a good thing. Anything that's gives elephants pause for thought. Because if you've got sort of someone that's bringing up light artillery, oh, I'm moving forward, I'm sliding, it's facing your elephant, I don't care if there's a Scylla in front of it, oh, your elephant's been knocked down, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, no, I think knocking a bit off elephants is kind of good. Okay. Actually, the other elephant change...
I enjoy deploying elephants. I agree with that one.
The other elephant change is that elephants in the Seleucid and Ghaznavid armies are no longer elite. They have armor, which gives another dimension to elephants. I think Peter and Simon, you're the elephant meisters on the call.
Yeah, I see the notice that they've put it on the Ghaznavids, because Ghaznavids ended up being the key army for certain competitions. It got to the point where it was almost boring, where some of the better players were almost like they'll play anything but Ghaznavids because they'd worked that mecha to death.
I think
what do you think, Simon?
I think it'll make things rather interesting. I think having different types of elephants rather than everybody brings the elite elephant.
Yeah.
Having different flavors of it and allowing some armies to have different flavors will just make some things more interesting. Because I do agree with Peter, it did get boring to the point of, oh, look, it's going to be this competition. He'll have this Ghaznavid army. Yeah. You'll have that one. Oh, look, guess what? You're exactly per the standard procedure number 2. That's your army list. It was getting a bit boring. There was a Yuan Chinese, there was the Ghaznavids and all that. So I think some differences and breaking apart some of those more OTT armies that we only ever saw one formation of will be really cool.
Like Burmese
Yuan Chinese wasn't elite though, so it was ordinary elephants, but it was covered by other bits.
No, but what I mean is there were certain armies we only ever saw, or primarily only ever saw, one style of design from. Like, Yuan Chinese was going to be this, this, and this.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. It definitely brings more variety. I think the next rule that's come in is that when you're placing terrain, if I get this right, is if one half of the table, one player's half, has got 3 more bits than the other half during the placement sequence, the next piece has to go in the emptier bit. So it means that you can't end up with all the terrain on one side anymore.
I like that. I like that one. I think it just gives the opponent who has, if just the way dice falls, sometimes you do get a table where everything is purely on one side of the table and the opponent has nothing. It just gives them something to work with.
Useful, but it is kind of marginal because those tables don't happen that often. But when they do,
yeah.
They happen more often than you think, because it is like how your dice falls. But if you've rolled for the dice and you've picked a lot of terrain to start off with, and it happens to fall some way, when they come to put other terrain, if you position it correctly, it won't actually happen. It's not going to end up in those areas. So it kind of restricts it, and it's easier to play that, especially in competition. So I actually like that as an idea.
More terrain on table, isn't it? Because there won't be the bits that you can't place that just get lost, I guess.
Yeah, I think that if it's the idea of, if you've got 3 pieces on the opponent's side of the table, the 4th piece arrives, the defender gets it, I think that's going to be nice. Just to give the table a bit more interest, rather than, we've all seen those tables of the massive defensive formation and sod's law. That's the medium infantry army. They've got all the rough terrain, and your Byzantines just look at it and go, well, I'm not going into it because I'm just going to get mullered. Yeah. Should we go to the pub because we wasted 2.5 hours?
Yeah.
Or the opposite, they've got a medium force of everything. You've got the terrain on your side, and you're the Byzantine army. And it's like going, well, I'm going to stop this one in about the first 30 minutes, and then they can get a bit of terrain, which makes it a bit more interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Next rule then is rear support, which has always been too expensive to take, I guess, for the value it gave. So it looks like that's
didn't give any value.
It's just got a little bump up now. So it's now always +1, which I presume means that the exclusion for heavy armor no longer applies. You get that against cataphracts and against
Or does it mean every round?
No, if it loses the combat.
But if it loses the combat every round, it used to be just the first round.
Surely it won't be every round, because it is a first round thing. But
it would be first round.
I think my guess is that will mean it counts against heavily armored troops. Would be my guess. It removes furious charge of mounted, which makes them pretty pokey against mounted troops. And then it says archers, crossbowmen, and mixed troops no longer have that support. But I don't think archers and crossbowmen had it anyway. It was just the mixed units. So
if you could have that on medium foot, it makes medium foot so much more valuable. If you could stick support in a few medium foot, and you've got cavalry charging against it.
Yeah.
Well, that's your Roman auxiliary, isn't it? That makes them a bit better. But it means that point cost.
You still don't have a factor against knights.
Yeah.
No.
But at least it gives some of those units a chance in hell versus just being squished.
Yeah, just being squished.
Yeah.
And
versus being a road bump.
Then classical Indians, the Gupta option, which is one of the options, you can have some impact cavalry, something like that.
But I think that's the Gupta gets the.
It's almost getting Rajput type
troops, cavalry, can't they? Already.
Yeah, it's getting some Rajput type troops for that one, which is there. What else is happening? I think there was armor for light chariots, I think. Or some light chariots, New Kingdom Egyptians get armor, which sort of makes them better medium cavalry.
Yeah,
if it's
only playing them tomorrow, then, isn't it?
If it's only New Kingdom Egyptians, that'll be a little bit disappointing. I think it's a good idea, but just limiting it to New Kingdom Egyptians would be a little bit disappointing.
Maybe there'll be others. I guess.
It'd be nice to make it would be nice to make my New Kingdom Egyptians a little bit more survivable, because I know some of the games I've had, they do get steamrolled in period.
Yeah, no, that was an absolute big difference. So I think that's almost all what's and then impetuous charges are not you don't go against troops that would panic them. I think that only means camels have just been added to the list of people that will stop impetuous charges.
Yeah, people were gaming it about moving stuff in to draw in impetuous charges from stuff that shouldn't.
Yeah, so that's kind of smoothed some stuff out. So on balance, then there's nothing. They all feel kind of good and positive and sort of small but still small but significant. Perhaps is probably the best way of putting it.
Thought out, I think, is the word. Think is the phrase. They'd actually. When they were testing the rules, they tested out with several gamers and several groups. It wasn't just one guy thinking about it. So they've gone back and forth a few times. So I'm quite pleased about most of that.
Oh, that's good then. Okay, well, good news. And I guess we'll see the drip feed, and quite soon we'll see the actual real thing, won't we? By the 19th.
This means war.
look, with all the excitement over the Gallic world of V4, I think it's time for the Gallic world of Vive le Techno. So, and as we hit the music for Andy's quiz.
Question, comment les voir? Question, le trou est sans fond. Question, la légende le dit. Question, elle dit aussi. Question, c'est une maladie. Question.
So, Mr. Finkel, I hear well, you've obviously got some answers from last week for us first, and then have we got a choice of quiz questions this week?
Yes, you've got a choice this week.
All right, well, let's have the choice of the choice answers from the choice questions last week.
Right, last week's questions were about carry-on cruising. And the first question was, when Lieutenant Helmut von Mucke's ship was sunk when he was leading a shore party, he led his landing party across thousands of miles of ocean in an open boat, then through a large area inhabited by hostile tribes, and eventually back to Germany via Constantinople after many months of travel. What was the name of the ship of which von Mucke had been first lieutenant?
I think it might have been the Emden.
That's right.
Wow, good answer. Pulled out the bag.
Yeah. Must have been a bit of a shock, though. You're on a landing party trying to, capture the local wireless station, and then your ship buggers off and is sunk. And crikey, here I am, thousands of miles from anywhere. But fair play to him. He got back to Germany. Quite an impressive guy by the sound of it. The second question was, who served with two navies in the First World War, ended the war as a prisoner of war after his submarine was sunk, and decades later rose to be commander-in-chief of his country's navy? Anyone know?
That would be Dönitz.
Dönitz, that's right, yes.
Yeah,
Dönitz.
Turkish
That's
Navy.
right.
There's a bit of editing last week, Tim.
Yes,
Yeah,
a bit of editing.
it was in the Turkish Navy, wasn't he?
That's right. The ship he was on, the Breslau, became commissioned in the Turkish Navy, is called the Midilli. And it had lots of different action. It was got quite a bit of activity until it was sunk in 1918 by hitting 3 mines or something.
Okay.
The third question is, when Wickham Musgrave, who later rose to the rank of commander, was on 3 British cruisers torpedoed on the 22nd of September 1914, what was the nickname given to this force?
The nickname? I don't
nickname
know.
of the
The
horse.
official name was Harwich Force.
It was based in Harwich, yeah, that part of the world, yeah. They became known as the Live Bait Squadron.
Ah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Something.
Yeah.
He was,
And most
he
of
was
the
only
time,
a midshipman at the time, wasn't he?
I believe so. He was born in 1899, so he was probably a midshipman.
Yeah.
But they normally had an escort of destroyers and lighter cruisers, but when the weather got rough, these ships had to go back to port. So there was just these heavy cruisers sailing on their own, and they were,
We're mullered.
mullered. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely right. Anyway, now when you've done the musical interlude,
Question, comment les voir? Question, le trou est sans fond. Question, la légende le dit. Question, elle dit aussi. Question, c'est une maladie. Question.
I now have a choice for you. You can choose between Down Mexico Way or What's It Like Out?
I think Mexico. I'm all over Mexico. Yeah. We want
We want the tequila.
the tequila,
okay.
yeah.
Well,
Tequila.
so we'll do What's It Like Out next week, okay? But this week's questions are about Down Mexico Way, inspired by the Mesoamerican podcast.
Yeah. Okay.
So the first, you're trying to work out what What's It Like Out is all about, aren't you, Tim? I can tell.
Of course.
But the first question is, during the Battle of San Antonio in 1836, which helped to secure the independence of Texas from Mexico, how did the Texians generate surprise when they attacked the Mexican army?
Okay. Interesting one.
Right. Question 2. How many presidents of the USA served in the US Army during the Mexican-American War of 1846 to 1847?
That's a fairly small time period, so I'm guessing not many, but we'll find out next week.
And the third one is, in January 1917, the German foreign minister sent a telegram to the German ambassador in Mexico, offering the Mexican government support to recover Arizona, Texas, and New Mexico if they joined Germany in attacking the USA. The telegram was intercepted by British intelligence and passed on to the US government. What was the name given to this incident?
Okay, well, let's hope it's a smutty name, and there's a bit of a double entendre pun there. But when on that note, I think it's time to pull in the music.
Question, comment les voir? Question, le trou est sans fond. Question, la légende le dit. Question, elle dit aussi. Question, c'est une maladie. Question.
Okay, well, look, with the quiz music receding into the background, we've just got time for a 6-strong run around the Zoom screen to say what's going on in the next week. And Adam, what have you got on your paint table, on your wargaming table next week? Or is work going to come and, actually it's Easter, isn't it? But maybe it's some time off. Is real life going to come and stop you painting?
Yeah, ships and the kids are going to be off school soon. So I'm going to be busier than when I'm at work, to be perfectly honest. So painting ships, see if I can dry brush them nights.
Yeah. Okay. What about you, Peter? What in your Docklands fastness?
I'm going to be actually trying to ensure the dog doesn't go anywhere near my Polish lancers, and actually stick stuff down and use the interlude of having a 4-day weekend to actually spray some damn stuff and do some painting. So
sticking dogs down counts as cruelty.
Yes.
No, it doesn't. If you actually get into play fetch at the same time,
okay.
It's just Saturday. I've got plenty of time to run away. It's like 90 minutes until the thing steps.
Just super glue the dog down. That's the secret, probably. That might be the answer.
Yeah, I think I'd find myself being super glued down by my boys. So it's things I don't do.
Okay, Tamsin, what about you? So it's undercoating and then launching to Paris?
Undercoating, well, priming for US and Polish paras, and then I'll probably do some test figures on the US paras, paint the Polish paras, and then do some more experimentation on the US paras.
Right.
Paint scheme,
painting Polish paras have they got the smocks? Because that's a full-time job.
So it's basically what I've done with my previous paras, but with black paras.
All right, you're copying
previous paras. How many paras have you got?
Well, the US paras.
Have you got a para fetish?
Of course.
Yeah, I might have an airborne fetish. Yes.
Yeah, that's it. All right. Well, whilst we're airborne, then we'll go flying down to Mr. Finkel. What you've finished your stuff? What are you up to this weekend, paint wise, or next week? The next 7 days?
It's probably going to be almost certainly finishing off, which I've nearly done, these Saracen bowmen. Then I've got to think about what to do next, because I've got one 50mm project left, which is the Ottomans, Renaissance Ottomans, or else I go to the 10mm World War II stuff, including sticking together some of the Victrix 144 tanks and things.
Okay, so we'll find out which direction you've done by next week.
Possibly, yeah.
Right, possibly. Simon, what about you? What's coming up next week for you?
More Greeks. So probably I can see Greeks on my table pike, and more pike.
Pike.
And maybe some hoplites.
Okay, and I think I will try and get the Thracians done. I think they're closer, and that could be my project to try and finish over Easter, because I think I've committed to using them in York. And okay, that is 2 months away, and there's still a whole new set of rules to come out. But it would be kind of nice to get them done, really, just because I feel like I should achieve something. So there's certainly that to do as well. Whilst we will, by the time this next one comes out, we will be even closer to V4, and we'll learn even more about it. So I think on that note of anticipation, we will all go away to our own private Wargames bunkers and either not go to shows or not on the way, and be ready to wait for it next week. So goodbye, everybody. Goodbye.
All
right. Bye, everybody.
Yes, you got gamers funk. When you're at Salute, if you pops around to where the marathon runners are, you smell the runners funk. It's actually as bad.
This means war.